everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Learn English with Natalie. If you are a new listener, welcome, and if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for joining in today. I really hope you are enjoying the lessons so far. Now, if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, please remember to subscribe to this channel as it really helps grow this show. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get into today's lesson. So today's lesson, the objective today is making suggestions. Today we are going to be making suggestions in English. Please remember that the following lesson provides information that is fundamental to your English language learning. So you may want to consider keeping a journal with your revision notes, or you could download the PDF activity sheet that comes with this episode. You'll find it in the show notes. Please remember the 2 top tips for learning. Consistency is key, so please make sure you are practicing your English every day. And there is always room to make mistakes. Without mistakes, we don't learn. So if you do make a mistake, don't worry. It just means that you are improving your knowledge. Okay, let's have a quick recap of last week's lesson. In last week's lesson, we were giving directions in English. Now, let's have a recap of this. I want you to consider a landmark or a place that is close to your home. And I want you to practice telling yourself directions to that place in English. Now, let me go over some of those key words from last week. Some of those key phrases that we learnt last week were on the corner, go straight ahead, turn left, turn right, take the second street or take the third street. So you might say, take the second street on the left, take the first street on the right, and across from or opposite from. So just take a few moments now. You might want to pause this episode while you do so. Choose a place that is near to your home and practice giving yourself directions to that place. Okay, well done. Let's get into the main part of today's lesson. As usual, the episode is broken down into several different parts. Part 1 is your introduction and teaching point. Part 2 is your vocabulary practice. Part 3 is your listening practice. And in part 4, I will give you your independent learning task. So, episode 6. What are you going to be able to do by the end of this lesson? By the end of this lesson, you will be able to make suggestions fluently, and you will also be able to make suggestions politely. So why do we need to learn to do this? Now, as I said, we are making suggestions. We are giving somebody options. But sometimes, if we are not using the correct language, we might come across as rude or abrupt to the listener. So we want to make sure that we are using key English phrases to soften how we deliver our suggestions. So that person knows that we are making a suggestion, we are not demanding something. So, part 2, vocabulary and speaking practice. One of the key phrases I want you to practice today is the phrase, why don't we? Can you say that? Well done. I'll give you an example of a sentence with the phrase, why don't we? So this is my turn. Why don't we try a new restaurant this weekend? I'll say that again. Why don't we try a new restaurant this weekend? I'll say it one more time and then I want you to repeat it back to me. Why don't we try a new restaurant this weekend? Your turn. Fantastic. The next key phrase I want you to practice is how about? Can you say that? How about? How about? How about? Lovely, well done. Let me say this in a sentence. How about going for a walk after dinner? I'll say that again. How about going for a walk after dinner? I'll say it one more time and then I want you to repeat after me. How about going for a walk after dinner? Lovely. Now you may notice when I say the sentence, I change the pitch and tone of my voice. I'm going to say it one more time. How about going for a walk after dinner? Now, because I have raised my tone there, the listener will understand that I am offering this suggestion almost as a question. I am giving a suggestion, but I am also asking if they want to do this. I'll say it again. How about going for a walk after dinner? Can you try it with the same inflection in your tone? How about going for a walk after dinner? Your turn. Well done. Excellent. Let's move on to the next phrase. Now, this phrase, you might want to use this in a more formal setting. The phrase is, I suggest that. Can you say that? I suggest that. One more time. I suggest that. Okay, and one more time for you. Perfect. Now, you might use this phrase more frequently at work. I'll give you an example sentence. I suggest that we start the meeting earlier tomorrow. I'm going to say it in my natural fluency now. I suggest that we start the meeting earlier tomorrow. I'll say it one more time. I suggest that we start the meeting earlier tomorrow. And now I want you to repeat after me. I suggest that we start the meeting earlier tomorrow. Can you say that? Perfect. Well done. Now, it's important to note that with this phrase, you can use this in an informal setting, of course, but it can also be transferred over to a formal workplace environment. The fourth phrase we are going to practice this week is, maybe we could. I'll say that again more slowly. Maybe we could. One more time. Maybe we could. Your turn. Lovely. Here's my example sentence. Maybe we could meet up next Friday instead. I'm going to say it more slowly now. Maybe we could meet up next Friday instead. I'll say it one more time. Maybe we could meet up next Friday instead. Your turn. Perfect. Well done. Great. Now, by using the key phrases I've taught you today, you will be able to offer your suggestions in English without sounding too bossy. Now it's time for a listening practice. I'm going to ask a question in a suggestive tone. Should we go and watch a movie this weekend? What should we watch? Should we go and watch a movie this weekend? What should we watch? Now I want you to agree and make a suggestion of the movie you might want to see. You might start the sentence with, that sounds great. Why don't we watch? Or you might say, that sounds great. How about we? I want you to pause the recording now so that you can have time to practice your response. Great, well done. Okay, and now I'm going to ask you another question. So I'm going to ask this in a more formal tone, pretending that we are at work. Should we move ahead with the project tomorrow? Should we move ahead with the project tomorrow? How would you respond? Can you remember the formal key phrase that we covered? Well done. It was, I suggest that. So you might say, I suggest that we move ahead with the project on Tuesday instead. Or I suggest that we move ahead with the project next week instead. So instead of saying, no, we are moving ahead next week, you are saying, I suggest that. You are softening your opinion and your suggestion. Can you come up with a phrase to respond with, should we move ahead with the project tomorrow? Well done. Excellent. Now, it's time for me to deliver your independent learning for this week. Next time a friend asks you to make plans and asks for your opinion of where you should go, respond with one of this week's key phrases. Remember, those key phrases were, why don't we? How about? I suggest that. And maybe we could. If you're feeling confident enough, please tag me in your videos on TikTok. I would love to see you practicing your English. I love receiving these videos. It's really tricky when you're recording a podcast because I'm just sat in a room by myself right now. But when I get the feedback from my listeners and subscribers, it really makes me feel like I'm talking to somebody else. So please keep them coming. Now, before we go, I want to say a big well done for completing today's lesson. You have come so far, and I'm so proud of you to committing to these episodes every week. I'm sure you are seeing some progress in your English language learning, which is fantastic. If you are interested in learning English at a faster pace, you may want to consider joining my book club, which is available on the Patreon app, and all the information for this will be available in the show notes. There is one episode a week where I cover modern and classic novels in English, and I look at the vocabulary and the themes that are used in these stories. Now, it's a brand new Patreon, so all new members welcome, and you will also have access to the community chat as well. There is a free trial included, so please check that out. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel or to the podcast, please rate, review and subscribe. It really, really helps. I'm trying to grow this channel as big as I possibly can, and I'm counting on you to help me to do that. So please do rate, review and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.